What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart for those of you that are new. And today we have an 8-game NBA slate here on DraftKings for Wednesday night. So as you guys already know, hit that like button and subscribe. Let's get right into this early look slate breakdown. So heading on over here to the first game, we have the Lakers versus Washington. Obviously a fantastic matchup here for the Lakers. And we're getting some great prices on Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Reeves, Russell, you name it. Great price tags, great matchup. Really, really like getting to at least one of these guys. Now, the issue is the Lakers are playing tonight. They are blowing out. I forget who they're playing, but they're blowing them out by like 19, 20 points right now. But still, I do think LeBron and AD have at least played 30 minutes, if not a little bit more. So on a back to back, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them gets ruled out, which I would assume it's going to be LeBron, just because the dude is 50 years old. So with that in mind, if that happens, obviously Anthony Davis versus Washington looks absolutely amazing at 10-5. And then I'd really, really like getting to Russell and Reeves. And then obviously Hachimura would be that very, very strong secondary option. Sure, you can land on Dinwiddie if you want to get a little bit different. Maybe Hayes if you're trying to get, very different. But once again, if there's going to be one of the stars missing, AKA LeBron, it's going to be really hard not to do this to your lineup. I mean, most people are going to do this. So if you want to get different, obviously you can fade one of the guys. If I was to fade one, it'd probably be Russell, but still, this is going to be how most people start their lineups for tomorrow if there is no LeBron, resting on the back to back. Now, obviously, you can get different going to Rui there, taking out like a Reeves or taking out a Russell, you name it. But yeah, a lot to like here for the Lakers if there's going to be no LeBron or possibly no AD and LeBron plays. It's basically the same thing. You lock in LeBron, Russell, Hachimura, Reeves, you name it. Those guys look great. Moving on to the Wizards here. Just one of those things, obviously, if LeBron or AD gets rolled out, obviously going to keep this game closer, which makes it more appealing. Kuzma is out tonight versus the Bucks, but he might be back tomorrow. Obviously, if he's back, it does hurt the upside of Denny, Poole, Kispert. They're all kind of pricey. I really just prefer getting to Kuzma there. I wouldn't mind Denny, but still, I'd rather get to Kuzma there if he's good to go at 8.3. But obviously, if he's out again, then Denny, Poole, and Kispert look really, really solid. The price tags are definitely a little bit high, especially for Denny and Poole. But with no Kuzma, that offense is going to have to go through these three guys. Bagley is questionable. He left today's game. I don't think he's come back yet. And they did start Vukovic here, Tristan in place of him, and he's doing really well right now. I think he has like at least 17 points, a couple rebounds and assists. So he's actually doing like extremely well in a short amount of minutes. So that could be a possibility to get to him there at 3,000. So a lot to kind of wait for in terms of the Wizards here for tomorrow. Once again, Tyus Jones could be back. We don't know. So kind of more a wait and see approach. Luckily, it's the first game, so we'll have more information with that. Moving on to Portland here versus Charlotte on the Portland side. I think DeAndre Ayton looks really, really good. With no Simons that last game, he was kind of the main offensive player there. Shot it 18 times, 36 minutes, 20, 12, and 3. Like, he is definitely a little bit too cheap here at 7.6. I mean, just a fantastic matchup here against Charlotte. Once again, it looks like there's going to be no Simons. Brogdon's obviously been out for a while. Looks like he is going to be out once again. And then Grant is questionable. If he's back, he'd probably be the kind of the second option there alongside Scoot, but he's doubtful as well. So we're going to get Ayton leading the team in terms of offense alongside Scoot in the starting lineup. They both look really, really solid here in this matchup. And then Baton obviously looks really, really good off the bench. He's been super aggressive, has had really, really good upside. As you can see, 3 out of the past 4 games, 50 or more fancy points. So at 6.9, definitely too cheap here, especially in this matchup. So a lot to like here in terms of Ayton, Baton, and Scoot. Rest of the team don't have much interest in him. Sure, Jabari Walker, if he starts again, I wouldn't mind him. But as you can see, played 34 minutes against Miami. Obviously, huge blowout there. Only shot it 6 times, but still went for 10 fancy points. He does have a low floor at times, but as you can see, 40 minutes, game was close, did really, really well. So kind of boomer bust play at 4.9. So if you landed him, sure, don't mind it. Chris Murray, he's there. Same thing with Reef. They're there. I don't have interest in them. Would rather get to the 3 main guys of Ayton, Banton, and Scoot. Moving on to, so right now, I'll just go back real quick here. Obviously, we have to wait for this Lakers news, but let's just throw AD in for right now. On the Portland side, we'll just throw in Ayton for now, the 2 centers. Obviously, ton of news we have to wait for. But moving on to the Charlotte side here. For Charlotte, it's just kind of the end of the season where everyone's going to be marked questionable. So it's just going to be make it a headache in terms of breaking down this game and these slates. But questionable right here for Bridges. Same thing for Brandon Miller. Same thing for Micic here, who is pretty much doubtful to play. Williams is questionable, who slid into the starting spot there last game. So it's just an absolute nightmare here. Could get a possibility where they rule out all four of these guys, and then we get like a starting lineup of Man, Richards, Poku, Bertans, and maybe someone like Amari Bailey, or possibly even a Nick Smith Jr., McGowan. So could be one of those possibilities where we could really end up game stacking this entire game, if not, at least 5 to 6 players from this, Charlotte important game, and kind of getting different elsewhere. But yeah, a lot to kind of wait for these first 2 games. Moving on to OKC. SGA is out tonight. We'll see if he plays tomorrow. So obviously big question mark. Jalen Williams, same thing, ruled out tonight, could play tomorrow. Front end and back-to-back tonight, so obviously it makes sense to rule them out. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them or both of them are good to go tomorrow. And if that's the case, I do think SGA is definitely too cheap there if he's going to play his full allotment of minutes. Chet Holmgren, once again, kind of like my take from last night, wouldn't be opposed to taking a shot on him. We know he has solid upside. He's been in an absolute cold streak right now. And I think they're doing pretty bad across the board with no Jalen Williams and SGA tonight in terms of just DFS upside. Not really sure the ownership's on Giddey and the rest of the guys, but yeah, they're not doing too well there. So wouldn't mind going to SGA, Chet there if they're good to go for tomorrow. Otherwise, if SGA and Jalen Williams are still ruled out against Boston, it's just going to be ugly. So once again, wait and see with SGA and Jalen Williams if they're good to go. On the Boston side, only news right now is Jaylen Brown, who's considered questionable. If he's good to go, these guys are just more so secondary options. No one really stands out at their price points. Even if Jaylen Brown's out, like sure you can land on a Derek White, sure you can land on Tatum. They're there, they're fine, but that's really it. And then you have like Hauser randomly going off for 34, 9 threes, 24 minutes. Like Boston's always priced about right. Really don't feel great about landing on them unless like Tatum or Brown are out, or like Tatum or Porzingis. Like if 2 people are out, sure, they're good to go too. But otherwise, if one guy's out, unless it's Tatum, then you want to load up on a few other guys. But if it's Brown, there's really no need to kind of load up on other stars. Like you don't have to do it. Moving on to Detroit versus Atlanta here. The big question mark is Cade. Just could be one of those things where they just rest him for the rest of the season. So definitely keep an eye out on that. But obviously a fantastic matchup here against Atlanta. If he's good to go, price has gone up, but still he's the whole entire team right now. Duran would be fine, but once again, he saw 35 minutes against Washington, which is great to see, but I think his tooth fell out, got it knocked out against trying to guard Jaren Jackson Jr., who Euro stepped him and just nailed his face, knocked out his tooth, only played 5 minutes, so but to see if he's good to go for this game. It looks like he should be. I'm just worried about the minutes, right? Like, if he sees 35 minutes, I'd absolutely lock him in this matchup, 7.2K, but he's just all over the place. Like, sure, he can have those monster games where he goes off for, 50 plus in less than 30 minutes, but 7.2, I want that security. And for me, it's just not worth taking a shot at him right there at 7.2, even though it's a fantastic matchup. Unless you're making a ton of lineups, then I'd definitely put him in a few. I don't mind landing on Ivy. He's been shooting the ball pretty aggressive the past 3 games, 14, 17, 17. The second option to Cade. So you do kind of need him to have a really good, shooting game there and, peripheral stat wise to have a kind of explosive night. But at 6.1, I do think he's a very interesting play there at that price tag. In terms of the rest of the team here, James Wiseman obviously saw more minutes because Duran was out. He should shift back to, 12 to 20 minutes. 5.3, I think he's kind of out of play for me. If Me2 gets to start here, one of those guys who's kind of up and down, but at 4.3K, if he gets to start, play solid minutes, he'd be an interesting value. That's really it. Don't have much interest in the rest of these guys. Obviously, if Cade gets rolled out and, they do start, Ivy's kind of the main point guard, I'd have a lot of interest in Flynn, one of those guys, one of those value guys who I've kept going to because, as you can see, even a short amount of minutes, 14 and 14, he's pretty much gone for a point per minute. So, if there's going to be no Cade, he should see 20 plus minutes, and he's been very aggressive and pretty productive. So, definitely a sneaky GPP play there that no one has really been going to. Moving on to Atlanta here, obviously against Detroit. DeJounte Murray looks a fantastic spin up. Just one of those guys who's doing everything. Jalen Johnson's back, played 25 minutes the last game. Looked pretty solid. Obviously, didn't shoot the ball too well there, but was moving fluidly. So I wouldn't be surprised if he sees more so of a minutes increase, if not his minutes increase lifted. If that's the case, 7,000, he'd be way too cheap there. He'd be a fantastic play. And it definitely hurts the upside a little bit there of Bogdan, who, got into it with his coach there, played for 34 minutes, went for 20, but only shot it 7 times. So a little bit of an outlier game there. I would still expect him to see 10 plus shot attempts, but I would expect his playmaking to go down a little bit there with the addition of Jalen Johnson back. So right now I'm going to throw Jalen in there, but obviously we do have to wait to see if he's on a minutes limit. The rest of the team here, you can land on Capella, you can land on Hunter. They're going to play good minutes. Fernando's an interesting GPP play at 4.1 off the bench, seeing around 20 minutes a game. But that's really it. Moving on to Indiana here versus Brooklyn. Halliburton finally had a monster game here, was super low owned, 27 minutes, went for a 60 bomb. Is he slowly starting to come back? I don't know. As you can see, the past week and a half, pretty much gone for 40 or more in every single game besides that game against Chicago when they got blown out. So maybe he's back. If that's the case, 9.2, way too cheap there for Halliburton if you believe he's back. Siakam at 8.4, he's priced up now to where it's like, if you land him, sure, would not go out of my way to play him. Turner's questionable, hurt his finger. If he's out, we'll have to see what they do with the starting lineup. Whether they start, Jackson here, whether they start, I thought they had Jalen Smith. We'll have to wait and see. But a lot to like here in terms of like who starts at center. I want to even be, I was gonna say mad, but I wanted to be surprised if they start Jalen Smith and they split the minutes between him and Jackson. If that happens, I wouldn't mind getting into both of them. Taking a shot on both of them in the same lineup if you want to get a little bit different that way. Because most people will just land on one. They'll probably land on the starter because you kind of feel safe with the minutes. But if they're gonna play both of them, I wouldn't be surprised if they both split the minutes. One doesn't play more than the other. That's the case. I do really like getting into at least one of them, if not both of them, to get different on the slate. Obviously, if you do that, not going to be able to play Aiden or Davis. So we'll have to wait and see kind of with the injury news in the first games to see if we want to go to that to get different on the slate for tomorrow. But yeah, a lot to like there in terms of the centers if there's no Turner. Now, if there is Turner, it's really just going to be interest in Halliburton for me, and that's it. Not much interest in anyone else. Moving over to Brooklyn here, team that's just been absolutely god-awful. Cam Thomas has been solid, as you can see here, scoring the ball pretty well recently, shooting it 20-plus times pretty much every single game, the past 4 or 5 games. So, great matchup here against Indiana. If you want to get to him, don't mind it. Mikal Bridges is kind of a pivot play off of him who hasn't had really the same upside as he had, last year, but, he can have those random one-off games, 7,000, perfectly in play there. Same thing with Claxton. They're all there. No one really stands out. I think Schroeder's probably still the best play just in terms of his price point. Solid upside, can go for 30, 35 plus if he's hitting his shots. So I'd say he's the number one option alongside Cam Thomas, and then Bridges, Claxton are kind of more secondary options. And I will mention Trenton Wofford, priced up to 4.4, but he's been playing really, really good minutes. He, even in close games, he still should see 15 to 23 minutes, and he's been productive. So 4.4, not the best value anymore, but still definitely a decent value play. Moving over to Orlando here. Paolo's price has really come down, 8.5. I think, what was he? He was, he kind of peaked into the 9K range. Now he's kind of dipping back down to the low 8s. I like buying low on Paolo, 8.5. We know he's triple-double upside. Not the best matchup here against the Pelicans, but still, this offense is going through Paolo. A little bit of a cold streak here for him. He needs to step up. He even mentioned that the other day, so I like him as a bounce-back play. Definitely too cheap for him there at 8.5. Even though it's definitely a tough matchup, I still like into him. Franz Wagner, kind of, he's there. It's like 6.9 definitely feels a little bit too cheap, but it's just, he's not aggressive at times. His, playmaking has gone down with the addition of, Suggs, Holt, Cole Anthony, all being, more productive now. They're just going through the lulls throughout the season where they're bad for, a while. Franz really steps up, and then these guys step up, and Franz hasn't had to do as much. So I think the rest of the team here are guys, like, if you land on them, like they have GPP upside, I would not go out of my way to play any one of these guys. Maybe if you're looking to force value, you could land on Isaac, but still, he's just not seeing a ton of minutes here. I mean, the most he's seen is 24, but otherwise he's going to see around like 15. So it's just really hard to trust any of the minutes for the rest of these guys here. I'd really just stick to Paolo if you're looking to get to Orlando Magic player. Moving on to the Pelicans here. On the Pelican side, Brandon Ingram's still out. Zion and CJ are still priced fairly. Still have great upside. I mean, even a massive blowout, CJ still played 40 minutes. Zion, played 37. I mean, he's had a really, really solid floor here. and does have a pretty solid ceiling. So they both look great as plays. Still really like Trey Murphy at 6.6. I mean, he's going to shoot the ball a ton. He's been rebounding very well and playing a ton of minutes. So I think he'd probably be my favorite. But CJ and Zion are not too far behind him in terms of playing those guys. I think Herb Jones is a strong pivot. Obviously, he has a low floor just because he's not the best shooter. But if he does hit his shots, he could definitely go for 35 plus, 5.7. Decent pivot play off of a super chalky Trey Murphy, usually. Rest of the team here, Nance, Marshall are fine. Pivot plays, low ownership guys if you want to get to them at their price tags. Moving over to Toronto here. Quickly and Barrett are back. They're playing tonight on a minutes limit, but still, I think they've played at least close to 25, if not 30 minutes. So not much of a minutes limit there. But on the back-to-back, maybe they rest them. Obviously, they're tanking, so it would make sense for them to tank to kind of lose this game. So that could be a possibility where they both get rolled out. If that happens, Olenek, we could get Gary Trent Jr. back for this game. If that happens, he'd be a decent option at 6.3. But obviously, there's a lot of blowout risk going against Minnesota here. So even with the possibility of Quickly and Barrett being ruled out, I still wouldn't have much interest in Brown, Dick, maybe Freeman Liberty if he starts. But he started that other game. I think it was against the Knicks. Or was it against Philly? I think it was Philly. Went for 24, played 31 minutes. I mean, he shot it a decent amount, got a couple of rebounds. So I wouldn't mind him at 4.8s, but otherwise, no one really sticks out offensively. They're just a very bad team right now. Now, if Quickly and Barrett are good to go, no minutes limit, I wouldn't mind getting into Quickly. We've seen very, very solid upside. But once again, we had to wait and see what they do with those two guys in terms of tomorrow. Moving over to the Minnesota side, Anthony Edwards' price is slowly creeping back down. Kind of like Paolo, really like buying low on him. We know the upside that is there with him. Looks really, really good. Gobert's a very strong secondary option. Back-to-back 40-plus fantasy point games. Naz Reid's doing very, very well tonight. They're also on a back-to-back. They're playing tonight. So could be one of those things where, want to target Anthony Edwards and Gobert just because maybe they're a little bit tired and maybe this game stays close. That happens. They should have some really good upside. And for Memphis, I'm just extremely surprised that, against the worst team in the league, Detroit, with Bane ruled out, the whole starting five was pretty much ruled out besides Jaren Jackson Jr. This dude was only 7% owned. Makes no sense. He was fantastic for me last night. As you can see, he went for a 62 bomb there and won them the game. So 8.1K against Milwaukee, not the best matchup. More so just kind of a contrarian GPP play, but we know the upside there with him. Bane looks like he's been ruled out. Williams still inactive. Smart's obviously out. Contra's questionable. That's really it. I think the only guy I might have interest in is Brandon Clark. I mean, as you can see, he's playing 20 to 23 minutes. He's been aggressive, been pretty productive. So if you're looking for a cheap value, definitely risky at 4.2, just because, hard to trust the productivity for a guy who's been out for like over a year. But he's definitely getting a decent run and being very aggressive. The rest of the team here, I mean, these could be solid plays. Jaren Jackson Jr. could be a really good play. Scottie Pippen Jr. could be a very interesting play here. Same thing with Luke Kennard. If you think this game stays close, it's gonna have to come from big games from Luke Kennard, Jaren Jackson Jr., and then possibly a guy like Brandon Clark off the bench. So those would be my main three targets if you want this game to stay close, or if you think it does, I'd look at them. And obviously on the Milwaukee side, they're on a back-to-back. They're playing tonight. Giannis and Chris Middleton are doing very, very well tonight. Wouldn't be surprised if Dame gets ruled in for this game. If that happens, all three of them are good to go. Could be a possibility where, Dame gets ruled in, Middleton gets ruled out just for injury management. Whatever the case is, whoever plays out of these three starters, whether it's two of them, I do like it into at least one of them. But if it's all three of them, they're there. They're more secondary options. No one really stands out to me. And that's kind of it. So hope you guys like the early slate breakdown. As I said, there's a ton of injury news. So really hard to kind of give you more than what I've kind of given throughout this video, just because the injury news for the Lakers kind of affects how you really want to build your slate, just because that's a ton of usage when you have LeBron or possibly AD rolled out for this back-to-back. Washington, we just have no idea what they're going to do with their starting lineup. That can open up some space. As I said with Portland, same thing here. A lot to like in terms of the Portland guys. They're pretty cheap. Charlotte, same thing. Could get a Charlotte team where they start pretty much all G League players. SJ and Jalen Williams, interesting spot there against Boston. And obviously Detroit and Atlanta. Like every single game pretty much has a ton of injury news. So do apologize for not being able to get a little bit more specific, kind of build out a little bit better of a potential lineup. But as I always say, we had to wait for the injury news. So make sure to stay updated with that. Hit that like button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.